Good evening. Albany, Troy, Schenectady, Rensselaer. We're back again with you again this week, Thursday. We have some new interesting guests for you this evening. We're going to start out first by, as always, talking about Black Wall Street and businesses and how we're going to, work together to bring about a change in our communities. And second, we're going to talk about new businesses or new entrepreneurs that we're going to introduce to you. And then we'll talk more about community, like are there some things that we could do to make a difference, which I'm sure there are. So as always, we start out with our jar and introducing our guests. I'll start from my right and we'll introduce our first guest. We'll let him tell you who he is. Mr. Hamilton, you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, sir. Yes, Warren Hamilton, owner of the Digital Eye LLC, specializing in video production and photography. Started out as a photographer, 40 years ago or something like that. Formed the business about 17 years ago. So right now I'm doing a lot of video editing, a lot of Photoshop. Also, I work with Final Cut Pro. So
okay,
yeah,
all right. Glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
We've been working around, right, Mr. Hamilton, for it seems like forever. He's always been supportive, right, and always in the community. And that's what we need. We need community participation. We need strong elders or strong activists in the community that work together, right, with community to help make a difference. And always to make us look good, right? Look good in front of the camera.
Yeah, well, he said that. That's one of my slogans. Come to the Digital Eye LLC and see how good you look. So he stole my slogan. Come on, man.
Okay, so also we'd like to introduce another one of our guests. What I think, pretty much one of the youngest one we had so far. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Macwood Jean-Marie, and I am the owner and founder of ToughSmart, and it is basically a three-dimensional empowerment brand where I try to empower youth minorities through speaking engagement, literacy, and also my graphic tees for my apparels.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
Sir.
How long have you been in business?
Well, as far as the apparel, since 2021 we've been established. But as far as the literacy, for the literacy it's different styles of writing. So I haven't done, how do I say that, self-empowerment books. I have children's books as well, and this right here is my latest. This is a novel, and it's a fictional novel at that, where I'm just trying to tap into my creative side. But the main thing really, again, is to focus on youth minorities and to try to empower them.
Okay, yeah. Listen, that is really admirable.
Positive, yeah.
Right.
Thank you, fellas. Yes.
Right. So, what's in your book? What are you writing about?
Well, this one right here is titled Chautauqua Lake, the Evanescence Trial. And this is basically a story about, Marquise Wallace, who is an upcoming film director, and basically with his only chance, he leaves his family in pursuit of his dreams. And many who have come before him, he faces challenges in a new environment. But before he can accomplish his goals, he meets a young attorney. And with her past in the picture, she leaves a lasting impact on his life. But now the question still remains, right? It's will he survive the thrill of the Evanescence trial? So basically this is right here is about a character who goes through his life journey, and then he has to, make certain decisions, and they're not easy, but we'll see, right? We have to stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. You got a book signing coming up too, right? You want to let them know about your book signing?
Yes, definitely. On Saturday, the 11th, between 5:30 and 7:30 p.m., the book signing event will be held in Colony Center Mall, and it is specifically located at the Money Getter brand store, which is across from Hallmark on the second floor.
Okay.
Yeah, and looking forward to seeing everybody out there, trying to make it very memorable.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds like it.
Great. Listen, a writer, right?
Doing it.
Trying.
So what you got going on?
Well, this weekend, man, I got a big video job coming up. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to be creating a commercial.
Okay.
It's a guy, he actually works for NL Solutions out in Niagara County, but at the same time he sells air purifiers. So he's trying to, this is one of his side gigs, so I'm going to use green screen, video, couple video cameras, and actually videotape to make it a production movie. He's going to first start out with social media, but he says he's
Okay.
got someone that he knows that will put it on broadcast for him. So it might actually, and that's the goal, end up on TV, because it's one of my goals to merge my political awareness with my video
Right, right,
and
right.
do political campaign ads.
Okay.
Digital Eye LLC.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Sounds
right.
very interesting,
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
way.
So,
Yes.
he's a owner of a air purifying company, right?
Well, he works actually with youth. It's young adults and adults. So it's more like not a BOCES, but a job training kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
In some hard skills stuff like working machines, but for adults out in Niagara County.
Okay.
But on the side, he sells air purifiers.
Okay.
So this video that I'm doing this weekend is for that job.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know a lot. I think it's Albany High. Albany High, they had outsourced contracts, right, for them to bring in new clean air solutions, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking maybe he was one of the ones that won a contract. But okay.
Yeah, he's out in
All right.
Niagara County. These are more different areas, personal, and I don't know about institutional use, but
Okay.
yeah. But I'm really excited about doing the movie. You know?
Okay. All right. All right. So,
Tell you the truth, I'm excited for you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The green screen, like I said.
Because I plan on learning more, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. So
do.
what do you see? I mean, you're a writer.
What
So we got it. Just happens on all our shows, right? We get someone that's either an author, right? Have some type of vision, right? That worked in the at work in the community would start to what I'm saying, materialize,
Right.
and then we always have someone on it that's either media content, right?
Yeah.
Or
Gotta get the message out,
another
right?
show,
Yeah.
and it just continues to work together.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I think that's the strength of Black Wall Street, bringing businesses together, supporting each other. When you drop your card in here, we got a lot of the cards, right? Too many to put in a jar, right, at this moment. But we work the cards, we work the businesses together, we support each other. So I could see
The networking.
I could see a lot of good success in
yeah,
store for this youngster, huh?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like, because again, I'm all for empowerment, especially like minorities and blacks. So, like 2018, 19, I was given the opportunity to go down to Virginia, the Men of Color Conference, the annual conference. So yeah, I was able to give a presentation, and on top of it, won an award for it. So, which reassured my vision, like, okay, this is my purpose. Because once they gave me that award, I came back up here, featured in Detroit Records, and Detroit City Council also acknowledged, they gave me another award for that.
Wow.
Going down
okay.
there.
All right.
So, and this is why, like this mission right here, and this is why when you said the Black
Black Wall Street.
Wall Street, yeah, Black Wall Street, it definitely caught my attention. So
Right.
now I appreciate the opportunity.
So
Yeah.
content is important, especially to a lot of us older, our older, generation. Content, and you being a younger individual and you're talking about content, that really makes me feel good, because a lot of times people just go off and they say and they do and they move, but they don't focus on the clarity of content and making sure there's some value in the message. And it
Yes.
seems like you have a strong value behind your brand and your message, right?
Yes, like it didn't come easy, it definitely didn't come easy. It's because when I first moved up here, I went through a bit of homelessness, and I mean several years, but in the midst of it, I just always remember the vision, so that kept me going along with the faith.
Yeah.
I think faith goes a long way. As a matter of fact, that topic was it was faith plus vision equals perseverance when I delivered that message down in Virginia for the Men of Color Conference.
Okay.
So yes, I believe in that.
All right.
Faith plus vision equals perseverance? What was
Yes.
that? Okay.
So once you have the faith and you have the vision locked in, like there's no escaping it. The only way through is through perseverance. That's going to help you through right there.
So let me add to that what I had heard, a Japanese proverb which is similar without the faith, and it's vision without action. Vision without action is a daydream.
Yes.
Action without vision is a nightmare. So if you had the faith to that, another home run. Add that to your
Home
triple
run.
crown.
Yes, sir.
Throw that in there.
Right.
And the timing is
Yeah.
everything. Timing.
Right.
Yes.
And behind scene, you could sometimes when people say things, I look at it and I see maybe like what made them say that. What mechanism or what gears in their brain click, right? Because like you say, the Oriental proverb,
Yeah.
and then he makes the proverb, but under our ethnicity, we always have that spiritual component.
Right,
And
right,
that
right.
spiritual component is what makes us drive. So we can see how different groups operate
Yes.
based off of their, their modus operandi, right? And that's interesting to us because Black Wall Street is focused on how we're going to make a difference. What's going on, And that's why when I ran into you also, Mr. Hamilton, that's why when I ran into you and you were talking about
How much money we waste on spending money on different
yeah,
things.
yeah, but I wanted to focus in also
Okay.
on the different laws that they had that legislation had passed, right?
Yes.
I think you were telling me what was it about the bail reform?
Oh, the
something
bail
like
reform
that?
laws? Yeah.
Is that something that you wanted to share?
It's
at this time?
it's huge news because the governor almost got unelected because of bail reform. Right? I mean, that Lee Zeldin guy was pushing the typical crime, fear, division, distortion. But I'm telling you, the bail reform piece, because they're blaming a lot of the crime on bail reform as if judges don't have discretion. Key phrase, judges having discretion. They've had discretion for hundreds of years, and for some reason it don't always work out for some of us. So the issue is not discretion, but also, with bail reform, they got to look at what are the people doing when they get out, right? You got to look at the high-powered assault weapons at the same time. It's not just people getting out, right? If they're getting out, are they getting out with fistfights and box cutters? No. So it's a bigger issue, and we got to look at, and this is the rub, and this is the home run part, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment. So the Fifth Amendment is due process in criminal procedure. The Sixth Amendment is we have a constitutional right, all of us, not just some of us, to a fair and speedy trial. Public defender, Rikers Island, Khalid Browder, that's not fair or speedy. And the last is excessive bails and fines. If they know where you live and you live in this neighborhood and you ain't got a car and you kind of broke, why do you have to sit in pretrial detention with a high bail when you ain't going nowhere? Where you going? To your mama's basement or auntie's house?
Right.
So that's a excessive bails and fines. It's not right.
Okay, just smile real quick. Just smile real quick. He needed to pause.
See how the frame is off?
That's the second camera, right? You're on the second camera, right? This is the second. Second is your wide lens, right?
Continue asking questions about the bail reform if you want, right? Because it's an easy clip for me to
Yeah.
get.
Okay.
Okay. You good?
Hold on, I'm gonna put the monitor on. Make sure.
It's like it works better unscripted, like natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works better.
Yeah, I try that now because I don't. You got to be ready.
Yeah, it works okay.
It seems like you're on it, man. It seems like you're
He's
like
a producer, so it's
Yeah.
different for him.
It works okay, but remember,
Okay.
if I could do good off the top of my head, imagine if I studied how much better I could do, and
He's gonna
everything
have
is
to be
fine.
off.
Yeah, it's fine. We're fine. We're fine with it.
Fine with it?
Yeah, we're fine with it. I don't have to be in the camera. Just you can
It's
put
not
him.
that you in the camera, it's just that, see how off that is?
Yeah, I see. Right. So then just put me in it, and then and level it like that. Yeah, and just level it like that. That'll be fine. That's fine. That's perfect.
That's fine with
That's
you?
fine. Yeah, I'm good with that. Because you got him in. I'm good with that. Because we want to be conscious for the time for her
We
too.
got 15 more minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So you said the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment,
And the Eighth
and
Amendment.
the Eighth Amendment.
Yes, are all constitutional guarantees for all of us, not just some of us.
Okay, all right. I mean, where do you see the conversation going?
The conversation going now. One of my favorites is the last line of the Gettysburg Address: "Government of the people, by the people, for the people." Right. So we just got to take it back. Now I know there are a lot of people who don't like the system and government, and call people who want to use the system as maybe bourgeois or sellouts. But you know what? We can't let the man off the hook who wrote the system, benefited from the system, and use it against you. Now we're going to just say, you know what? We're going to divest and not participate. You got to have both. So from within and from outside. But clearly, if the table is here, there's Hamilton, right, in the room, at the table, on the agenda, ability to open your mouth at the table. That's what it's about.
Right.
Not saying later for that. It don't affect me. It does affect you.
Yeah.
It does.
Right. And
Straight up.
Especially when the recipients of whatever action are in community, our communities,
Yes.
our urban areas.
Yes.
So you can't say it doesn't affect you. You can say I
Right.
don't want to be a part of the conversation, but
Right.
you're still going to be affected by whatever decision is made. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always better to be a part of the discussion, at least to be heard and to be on record, at least saying I agree or I don't agree. So
Right.
I agree with you 100%. We have to get to a point where we have, where we have a voice, and that's what, like I said, that's also what I think Channel Albany is about.
Yes.
It's about giving community a voice, right? And then us at Black Wall Street, right, Legacy Inc., being able to take the community, right, and engage, and then bring it like front and center. And we talk about some issues, and then sometimes there's some issues where we just set off and we say, oh, this is something that we need to have a town hall meeting, and we just go in and talk about them issues and just like dig deep, They said, what was it? It said the phrase silence, right? Or not saying anything, remaining silent, you are part of the problem.
Yeah, big part.
Yeah, you're
it's
part of the
more powerful.
problem.
It's one of Dr. King's famous quotes, but it's something to that effect.
Yeah, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So okay, you kind of see where we're at, a little older generation, and now you coming up, you bringing up the rear, and you're mentoring, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And what do you see? I mean, is it something that our generation, or because even though we're around the same age, still he has his independence. He's a thinker. I have independence. I'm a thinker. And trying to like kind of all work together. Is it something that you think you bring to the table, or something that we should, stop and listen to as a group, right?
I mean, as far as like what you've been saying, it definitely makes sense. And as far as like, how do I say that? Is it whose fault is it as far as like the youth or the younger generation not picking up on the jewels or the valuable lessons? It's both parties. It's both the elders and the young generation, because it's sad to say, I mean, we grow older. So when you're young and you don't get the knowledge, you're going to grow older without the knowledge. So now you become the older generation, and now you're not giving back to the youth. So now that's the part of me saying it's the older generation's fault, right? Now on the flip side, the youth as well, we live in a time where technology is everywhere. You got phones are in everybody's pocket, so there's no excuses as to why if you're looking for research. I mean, if you're trying to research something, you can't just go on your phone and just research whatever information it is, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the information is there, but they're not utilizing it, or they just don't care. So it's both parties, but again, the main thing is we can't control. I mean, being that we don't have control over people, so I think the main thing is that we we lead the best way we can, and whoever wants to join, they're going to join, and not only they're going to join, but we're going to make them feel appreciated.
Right.
I think that's the
Right.
factor.
And,
right
and
there.
a key that you mentioned also was social media, right? Because we know social media, is monopolized by influencers. Some influencers are big influencers. Some influencers are smaller influencers. right? Like at this particular time, media. We're talking, right? We're relaying a message, and that's why we try to stay open and receptive. But like I said, at the same time, social media, what are we saying? I mean, what's really being played out? Because if you hear what he's saying we're part of the problem, but then they bear some of the blame. But then again, the generation before always is the one that's supposed to set the trend, because they're actually our children, our young adults. So I can agree with him.
Yeah.
So we can, like, in a conversation like this, we could come off across the table and say, okay, all right, let's see now, what are some of the things that you think we should have did better, or we could have did better, or what are some of the things that we can help you do, since we weren't able to
resolve it.
be so successful.
Yeah.
So I if you know anything, or you remember, because you've been around us for a long time, I do a lot in the community, and I always get along with the youth, because when they start talking about, well, you don't know it all, I say, you better believe it, because if I did, we as a group wouldn't be in this position.
Exactly.
So we understand that there were some things that we could have did better, but if you take a moment, right, I'll tell you why we didn't do certain things, or what were some of our obstacles, because still at this particular time, if you take what I have to give you, right, it will be beneficial to you, if you're ready to receive. And then after that, okay, you go ahead and, you start moving. Science says that this front part of the brain,
prefrontal
the
cortex,
forelock, doesn't fully develop in a young man or a young woman, well, different times, but around 20, 26, 27.
Late 20s,
right? So when I talk to people and they're under that age, the first thing I do is I stop and I say, okay, let me see. Am I talking to somebody that's advanced here? Or am I talking to somebody that I'm going to have to, like, do more listening than talking? Right? So, okay, we're at this point, and we say we do understand our culpability, right, or our responsibility in the whole puzzle, or
and that's where the mix, and that's where the confusion comes in, because you're expecting somebody of age, 27, 26, and I mean where the brain like develops, the prefrontal cortex, right, where it develops more. You're expecting them to know better, and they don't, and
which defies physics, because you can't.
And that's the conflict right there. That's the big problem. So how do we overcome that? That's
by awareness and information. So when you're talking about change before and being a role model, very important. But the first thing is awareness, information, and knowledge. Because if you don't know, you don't know. It's kind of like, a good example is like a map. Like traditionally they say guys don't follow directions or whatever. Like if someone gives you a map, that's
not they. I think
that's that's information and awareness.
No,
but that's information and awareness, right? But you still may not look at the map. You might go, you know what? I know what I'm doing, right? So the information and awareness is it's a necessary condition, but it is not going to make it happen. So the same way with making change happen. If you young folk, or you ask, what can we do? If you don't know, you don't know. That's where it begins. Knowledge and information and awareness.
And applied knowledge, I guess, once we know it, huh?
And then you gotta put into the mix too the distractions from the haves, right? Trying to stay in control too. I mean, that's real, right?
Very much. Earlier when you were talking about part of the problems, distractions.
It gets very political. It do.
Madison Avenue too, the advertising. So this stuff is real. Why do we? And you know, I used to ask this for years. Seriously, I got a psychology degree and a sociology degree. I used to ask for years, why do they? Because remember the old Larry Bird, Michael Jordan commercials? So I would say to myself, they're not working for free. They got to be getting millions of dollars. So I'm thinking, you could take the Big Mac and cut the prices in half, and you sell more. You would think, because they're half price. So I will always scratch my head, but it's almost like brand loyalty and or emotion.
Yeah, emotion.
So they're not looking out for you because they really liked you. Quarter pounders would be half price, but they would rather just hook you and pay Michael Jordan and Larry Bird the money, or Sprite and anybody else.
So that's interesting.
Psychology is powerful, bro.
Yeah,
Powerful.
it is. It is. So I think a solution too is entrepreneurship, because now with that, it's like you become. I mean, you're trying to become your own boss, right? Therefore now you could, and if you have a right mindset, not just entrepreneurship, you got to have the right mindset once you're an entrepreneur, because some of them are greedy,
Yep.
and some of them mean well. So for those that mean well, entrepreneurship has to be the way, because it gives you that control of you delegating whatever task, honestly, and also, how do I say that? Not allowing everything to just pass by. So with that example you gave with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, why is it that McDonald's is giving them this much money when they could cut the price in half for the food, right?
Right, literally.
So the person with the right conscience as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
I think, would have control over that, or whatever business that they're doing. Like, so for example, like my business, like what I'm doing with the brand itself, I try to give out a lot of information and be considerate of the price for it. So graphics shirts, I'm not going, like, I put certain information like a bootstrapping, which is, and I mean another word for entrepreneurs. So if I sell something like that, I'm not going to put it at a high price, but it's of value, because once you pick up that word, you could, how do I say that, benefit.
Right. But remember too, with business, right, there's a difference between an entrepreneur and an investor.
Yes.
An entrepreneur looks for a niche, right? They don't come up with an idea. They look for a niche. And then they fill a void, and then they go into business,
Okay.
and they create a service, and then they capitulate the business, and then they go on to grow, right? An investor plays from a whole different angle, right? They're in a whole different quadrant. They're bringing money to the table, but they're just looking at the whole puzzle, and they're looking at the psychology of the group or the market that they put together, and they're looking at what they could do to move it to the left or to the right. Because if you make $100,000 a year and I make $20,000 a year, right? Me going to McDonald's is pretty much in my budget, and I'll fall into that media, right? Even though it's bad for me.
Right, I know what you're saying. Right,
I'll
they
fall
make it
into
seem
that
like a
media,
value.
right?
Okay.
But you making 100,000, you're not gonna go there because you got a different mindset. You eating healthy, you see?
I hope.
Because 200, most of them do, because
Yeah.
they go to
Whole Foods.
yeah, they go
Honest
to
Way
Whole
Food
Foods.
Co-op.
Yep, but they go to different places, and I don't want to go into different companies.
Let's just say we would hope they do.
Higher,
Right? We
higher
hope they
level,
do.
higher level restaurants.
Right,
Where
right.
you go in and they serve the meal, and they have the salad.
Smell fresh.
I got my salad on the burger, but he got his salad, right?
Right, yeah.
And then they got the water with the lemon. I got like salsa water
Yeah.
or some other tap water, right? It's just a difference. You see what I'm saying? It's a difference. So if a person, like when you look at levels of wealth and you look at from 0 to 200,000, that's supposed to be a part of the 1%, right? And then you look at the next level, maybe like 10 million to 30 million. That's a different level, right? Different appetite, different way they move, and then 30 to
Socioeconomic
100,
status goes
right?
up.
And all different levels of government open for you at a different time in, you know what I'm saying, in that level or in that wealth building process. See? So while they could just cut the burger in half, it might sell more like White Castle, but then they won't retain as much of their earnings like a McDonald's, because you go to McDonald's now, you're spending $40, $50.
Wow.
But what we're gonna do?
Wow.
That's so true. It's
Yeah,
true.
with
Wow.
2 kids, you spending $50. That's easy.
Yeah,
if not more. But okay, look, we enjoyed having you on. Tell our audience how to reach you.
Definitely. You could reach me on my social media page. I have Tough Smart. We have ToughSmartApparel.com, which is the apparel. We have the Mac Literature Club.com for the literatures. I'm putting everything under one umbrella. Yeah, and as far as, like, again, I have the event coming up on the 11th. And if not, if you don't catch me at the event, you could always order your book on the 13th, because I will be releasing this book right here. Again, it's just all about trying to stay creative and influence others so they could do what they do best, right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you can always focus in on Channel Albany YouTube, and then of course Spectrum on Tuesday nights at 7, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's tell them how to reach you, Mr. Hamilton.
Well, website, thedigitalillc.com, and that's THEDIGITALEYELLC.com. LLC, that's me. I'm in the area. You can reach me by phone, 518-527-2040, and really good video production. Really
Okay,
good.
great. Thank you for allowing us to come into your home again, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening, Albany, Troy, Schenectady, Rensselaer, Black Wall Street back with you once again. My co-host is with me tonight, Kayla, and we have Mr. Hamilton. We got some good topics that we want to talk about, different things going on in the community, and I want to take advantage of the opportunity since my co-host Kayla has a degree in psychology, and also Mr. Hamilton has a couple of degrees. How many degrees do you have over there?
I have 4 degrees, 2 masters and 2 bachelors.
Okay, so you have a degree in psychology also?
A bachelor's in psychology.
Okay, what are the other?
A bachelor's in sociology, and then a master's in public policy, and a master's in public administration from Marist College.
Okay, all right. So since we got a strong panel, we probably need to take the time for this show tonight to talk about community and some of the things that are going on. As always, we usually have new businesses that we introduce. Mr. Hamilton, what we do to fulfill that, we'll talk about first Digital Eye, right?
The Digital Eye LLC, yes indeed.
Okay. How would your clientele reach you, or how would the market reach you?
Well, they can definitely Google the Digital Eye LLC. I'm registered in New York State, so you might see a few fake digital eyes out there, but if it's an LLC after it, New York State, that's my title. Also, you can reach me by phone, 518-527-2040, and that's for video production, editing, duplication, and photography.
Okay, great. So let's start out like this. So Kayla, I was talking to Mr. Hamilton, and we were kind of talking about police reform. Big topic, right?
Big.
I think he's focusing a lot on, I think you said the 5th, the 6th, and the 8th Amendment, right?
Yes, just rights in general that we don't generally have, but yes.
Right. So, I mean, you do a lot of work with the young children too, right? With our youth too. How would that how would that kind of mingle or kind of work together with with Kayla, what she's doing?
Well, I wonder, so do your youth talk to you about having problems with the youth or the law enforcement or police in schools and things like that?
Some of my teens in my program, they do have like probation and stuff like that, but it's more so, they're not going to school or they're hanging with the wrong crowd, but nothing more so about, any like brutality or police reform in that sense. It's more so things that they have to do in themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, when you say 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments, right? So you're talking about individuals that get locked up, right? And they're waiting for trial, right? Or
Yes,
they're waiting
key
to go
term,
to
pretrial
court,
detention,
right?
yes.
Right. So, okay, so how is that going? Because I know that right now there's really no bail, right, for certain types of crimes, right?
Bail, the discretion of the judge to retain people for bail has been severely curtailed.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of people screaming that the judges don't have the discretion that they used to have.
Right. But that's a good thing because after
you go.
COVID, a lot of people, are still facing, we didn't get through this yet, the financial part of it, and then also the social part, because a lot of people are still facing eviction. Albany was facing like 4,000 evictions.
Yeah.
I don't even know how far we got with that, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think the city is doing a better job with our homeless population. The mission and those other programs, I think they're doing a pretty good job with that. But on the other end, rents are going up, but people are recuperating from not working for 2 years, and then of course you still have to, open up the door, right, for us to go back into the work environment. Before COVID, I think the stats was like 5.4% unemployment, right, in the city of Albany.
Yep.
And out of that 5.4%, about 80% of it was in our urban community. So there are some issues, right? And
A lot of issues.
why would the situation with bail be a problem? I don't get that. I mean, if you
Violent crime. That's that's the thing that people are using to knock bail reform. Khalif Browder, I think about the brother
Yes.
not every day, but a lot, because he spent 3 years on Rikers, and then they eventually dropped the charges and say, you know what, you can go.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
It ain't laughable,
I'm
right?
very.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kayla.
That's the story because I
Yeah.
did do an internship with Department of Corrections, and I was able to go to the housing units and stuff like that. And he was really on my mind because I found it crazy. And in the documentary, they taught you kind of the law of as a person who wouldn't know that. Right to a speedy trial doesn't necessarily mean what it says.
Sixth Amendment, yep.
So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's more so up to the discretion of the DA and how speedy they are. So, and for me, a person who's not educated in law, I would think that, you have this designated time to go to court, but really and truthfully, it's at the discretion, or they can request delays and stuff like that. So it could go from mandated time from 3 months to 3 years.
But that's true. But here's the rub. No administrative procedure or court administration procedure should violate what the Constitution tells me my right is. It says fair and speedy. So a little twist on that, public defenders. Most of our people have to get public defenders. Okay, and most of them are overworked on purpose, right? Because they don't have the money. So how is that a fair trial when I got a first-year law student out of school with 300 people on there? So it ain't fair and it ain't speedy. So yes, they can make up all the rules they want, and they do. And you're right, in practice, it is not what my rights are, and that's part of the problem.
Right, right. So let's take this and let's walk it to the community, right? So, is it okay to talk about your experience working with the community?
Yeah,
and being
or on the board.
being on the
Police
board. It's
review
okay.
board, yeah.
Right. So how did that go? Working with the police review board, because I understand now that they have different agencies that are out in the community, right?
The board itself.
Right.
They've really changed under local law.
Right.
Primarily what the board is we investigated complaints. There was a complaint, we investigate. What was the official actions by the police, and did the person who had the interaction feel like they had their rights done correctly?
Right.
The new change, and it's a big change, is the board now has investigative responsibilities. So instead of relying on what the police said and looking at the police report, trying to poke holes in it, they have their own investigator.
Right.
So it's a real change. So
Right.
it's.
But I understand too now that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I have to do a little more research. I understand now that the city has different agencies that when things happen in the community, they go out and they're supposed to investigate, or what do? They negotiate, or what do they do?
You're probably talking about some of the changes. That's a little different, I think, where they're trying to get mental health professionals and or homeless social worker people to work with the police so that they don't have to go out on those calls. Those are kind of separate than the civilian police review process, where they look at police procedures and what they did and why they did. So they're related, but they're kind of separate topics.
Is that a part of the program where they're using the Narcan or whatever it is?
Yeah, the Narcan
approach.
to help people.
Is that what it is, Narcan?
I think for the bottom line to police reform and police in the community is trust, right? Do we trust the police and do the police trust us, right? And if you ask any cop or any chief who ain't lying to you, they will tell you one of the most important things to public safety is trust.
Right.
Why ain't it there?
Well, I mean, the conversation is like, it's a heavy conversation, you know, and like I say always, you know, a lot of our audience gets a chance when we come on to have a wide view of older individuals, younger individuals.
Yes.
But by and large, you still get our perception of community. So I want to take it to community, right? So crime, right, which, you know, is related to police reform, right?
Yep.
Because it's a byproduct. Police reform is a byproduct of what's going on, that interaction between police and, you know, community, right?
Yes.
So we know that people commit crime usually when they don't have, like if someone's hungry or they don't have a job or something of that nature. So when we talked about the stats of unemployment and it being largely in the community, right? They had an article some years back. I think the guy's name was Chris, but I forgot his last name. He wrote for the Times Union, and he had the picture with going to the left, you see Arbor Hill. Going to the right, you see Loudonville. So those are the lower wards, and those are the upper wards going up. So in the lower wards, the medium income per family is like $20,000, right, a year. The medium, meaning for the family unit.
Yep.
Right. And then the upper wards, Loudonville and up, their medium income is like $100,000, $110,000
Wow,
or
big
more.
difference, huh?
Right. So now, when you take 1,000 families, and remember the Labor Department says 24,000 and under, you're living in poverty, right? So when we're talking about police reform still is reflective of how the city agencies are dealing with the community, right? And the power is supposed to be in the hands of the people, right? So 1,000 residents or families at 20,000, right, a year,
Yep.
that's 20 million. 1,000 in the upper ward families at 100,000 is 100 million. That's a $80 million difference. I mean, like, how long has that been going on? And how can you expect the lower wards, right, to be functional without some type of stipend or some type of assistance from the city? And when we say assistance, it's not just necessarily a handout.
Yeah.
It's in reflection of jobs.
But who says they want them to be functional?
Right.
Do they want us to be functional and participate? Do they need lower wage labor? Do they need somebody to fill their jails, the prison industrial complex? So again, not everybody has good intentions when they're in government. That's why it's our job to be watchdogs, government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's not their government. It's a representative democracy.
Right.
They're not representing the alligators. No, they're representing the people.
Right.
That's the problem.
So as you say, this should reflect in a rotation in our government agencies, in our city, in our state, in our federal agencies. That means that you should see a lot more minorities or people of color, right, graduating to those upper management positions.
You should, do we?
Right. I mean, maybe we need to evaluate that.
We had a conversation earlier offline about
Right.
representation and management,
Right.
whether it's brown or white.
Right. I know we don't want to go into names and stuff like that, but sometime when it comes to politics, I'm usually like keyed in on most of the elections, right? And I do that because, to me, local elections really make a difference because, I mean, this is where we
More
live.
important. That is
Right.
a big point, a
Right.
huge point.
Right. Those are factors, especially at a city like this with about 80,000 or 89,000 people, right? If you look at that, it's reflective of our
315,000.
community.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
But
no, 315,000 in the county.
County, yes.
Yeah, but the
County.
city,
City,
we're at
yeah.
like 89, and they say those numbers are inflated,
Okay.
right? But what I'm saying is, it should be more reflective of the community. So if our lower wards, right, are 80% black or African American, then those agencies that operate within that area should be reflective of the community, because it shows that the city or the state or the federal government is giving individuals in those areas an opportunity to advance, and they're not dead-end careers, right? That's how government works. I mean, growing up in the city, I can remember a time when you had each ethnic group, you know, you could watch it make its climb through government. So here in Albany, I'm saying, do we see that? You know, and if we don't see it, that is what we should focus on, because while we're talking about police regulating and you know, policing the community, you can't send a police agency into a community to regulate the community knowing that you created a hotbed. That's not being realistic, and it's not being fair to the individuals, you know, in those particular areas, right? So, I mean, from your standpoint, Kayla,
Yeah, the youth.
what do
because
you
the youth is the
what do
future.
what do you see? I mean, do you think that that our up and coming group, like in your age group, that you guys should focus on certain things? Do you think that we should maybe have a town hall meeting, right, among our urban community and outline some of these issues? What do you think?
I feel like in terms like my generation and generation under me, we don't really focus on these things, you know, especially me. That's why I'm kind of quiet right now, because I'm not really educated in politics, because I'm at this point in my life where I'm trying to start my career, do a lot of things. So I really just think even having young people in these type of conversations can really open their eyes to, like, you know, things that, why things happen, what happens behind the scenes.
Okay.
That's important, and the why, and that's focus on the impact.
Yeah, because it's
And
not
the effect.
it's not like a black and white thing. We know why something happened, but we generally don't know like the full story behind things. We only know what's told to us. And me as a young person, I've always been, you're not just gonna tell me something. I want to know why. I want to know every detail. So even just sitting on these conversations and learning is really good. It's the first start.
Yeah.
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 Back to the last segment, right? Awareness, information, and knowledge. It's a good start.
I can't tell you about something if I don't know myself.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right. So
you
from
don't know. Yeah.
So from a clinical viewpoint, I forgot who it was. I think it was Skinner, and he said if you take a dog
That
and you
was
put
Pavlov.
the dog.
Pavlov.
No, I'm not talking about the. Not, I'm not
Skinner
talking about
box.
I'm not
Okay.
talking about the electrical shock.
Okay.
I'm familiar with that one too.
Okay.
But I'm talking about taking a dog and you put it in a cage,
Yep.
and it grows in the cage. It grows in the cage. It grows in the cage, but it outgrows the cage, and it becomes deformed because the master doesn't feed it, doesn't take care of it, doesn't change the cage, and it becomes deformed because now it's big in this small cage.
Yes.
But then later the master lets it out by whatever by whatever circumstance.
Yes.
Whether they have a change of heart or someone else comes along, but they let it out of the cage. Now the dog is deformed. Whose fault is it that the dog is deformed? Is it the dog's fault?
Can't
Is
be.
it the master's fault? Meaning, whose fault is it? From a psychological or clinical point of view, Doc.
Well, I would say I'm not a clinical psychologist, but
Do you play one on TV?
no.
Oh, okay.
That's what everybody thinks you psychology, you try to analyze people. I don't. But I would say it's more so for the person who's in authority. But how did you get that authority to begin with? Because we can go back to a black or white thing. We can blame white people for our problems, or, it's not, let me backtrack. We can either blame or take responsibility, but it's more so we were in a position that we never asked to be in. So.
Okay, all right.
So it's
All right.
I like that you use that, because it makes sense, but more so like who to blame. It's not who to blame, it's how did we get here?
How did we get out?
Yeah.
So young folk are, so they don't have as much connection as you sort of said to, and you use the word politics, but as you know, because you know politicians, there's public servants and politicians. And I think we're too oft to use the term politician. There's at least a few of them, are actually doing good stuff and have
Yes.
good hearts. So they're not all politicians, that's all. Some are public servants.
I'd like to do like a study. I don't know what the numbers are, but okay, the basic municipalities or organizations in the city, how many of them are run by African Americans or people of color, and how many of them are run by different groups? And here's why I'd like to do that. Not to be racist or not to be critical or dogmatic, but to see if it reflects the growth and development of the community. Because as someone that votes for someone, if you're over an agency or you're one of the individuals in the city and you're thinking about the welfare, it's just like the parking meters. You think about the parking meters as a city way down the line, right? Taking care of them, knowing the monies that's coming in. You think about the sidewalks way down the line. You think about the water system way down the line. You think about pollution, how many industrial companies you're going to allow to come into the city area.
You know the problem with that though? And that's true, except federalism in the way government works, and you said it when you began with the word municipality. That's part of a stratified system. Jackson, Mississippi is run by who? A black guy. But he's under someone else's control.
Right.
And I learned this recently, Buffalo, the second largest city in the state, because the boroughs are counties, right? But Erie County is run by the county executive, who's always a white guy. So it's not a coincidence that the second largest area in the state, Buffalo, which is largely black, is controlled at the county level. So it's almost like a red herring to some degree.
Right.
When they put you in charge, bruh, but we got 5 other people in charge of you. So are you really in charge?
Right. And it's something else,
Maybe.
But I definitely understand exactly what you're saying, and we need to be on top of this.
Yeah.
Because from our age bracket, it's important that we give our youth or our generation coming behind us, we give them a fighting chance. And the only way we can do that is by transferring knowledge, technology, or whatever information that we have, or whatever type of experience and influence that we have. And too many times we don't do that because whoever's in front of us keeps us frazzled or just like kind of stressed out. And it's like being on the block with a lot of loud noise, and I can't take the time to really focus on my family and the things that I need to do, right? So people will do that, right? In their think tanks, they will design programs that would ravel, our young, I would say, individuals with the brain thrust, the young individuals that are coming out now into the world to make a difference. Like when we were coming out, we said we're going out to make a difference, right? But then you meet all of the different challenges, and it depends how you get around. Do you go over? Do you go under? Right? And who's there to reach out to help?
Right. Oh, that's important. Who's around you?
Right.
Fractured families, fractured communities.
Right.
Criminal justice system, right? Locking people up.
Right.
Becoming homeless. Breaking up families. Those are not accidents.
Right. Well, even like with Kayla working at the Boys and Girls Club, right? You're still there. You see a lot. I know you see a lot, right?
In terms of like my children and
Well, just basically the experiences, like you mentioned, like some of them, some of them don't have certain things that they need.
a lot of my kids come from fractured homes.
Yeah.
So, because I'm from the city too, and I had at that time, when I was working with children, I wasn't knowledgeable or wise enough to notice these things. But when I came to Albany and I started working here, I realized that it's very minimum that our kids are coming from structured homes, or they don't have DCFS evolved or things like that. So these kids really they need a lot.
Yeah.
They need a lot.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
It teaches you compassion. It teaches you patience and dealing with them and why they act the way that they do.
Yes.
Things
Right,
like
and,
that.
and lead poisoning. So while we're on that, and we're
Yes.
talking about the prefrontal cortex earlier, lead is the #1 worldwide toxin. There's no safe level of lead. A lot of things they can give you a split nanometer and say that's safe. There's no safe level for lead, right? And what do our kids suck on a lot all the time in minority communities, in housing projects, in poor schools? Lead. It causes brain damage, permanent brain damage. So these same knuckleheads out there that we be saying, what's wrong with these kids?
Right.
Maybe they're
Something-
drinking a lot of water.
Right.
I truly
Right.
do believe that. That's something, it's not even like to be funny or like you just said, something seriously is wrong that we have yet to identify. Even if they do come from like a household where their parents are trying to help them get through their problems. It's glad that you
other
said
things.
that. Because I have asked some of my kids, I'm like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
It causes permanent brain damage in developing brains.
Yes.
So, like, I think it's not as deleterious say if you or me were drinking it because the brain's already there. But kids, school, home, all the time. Imagine that. This is happening. We know about Flint. Flint is just
Yes.
one example of many.
That's just
How
one
can we
example
allow
of
that?
many. Right. So, I mean, I've definitely appreciated, you know what I'm saying, having you on the show with us, Mr. Hamilton. You got to come back. We got to go a little deeper in this. Of course, my co-host, Kayla, she always stays laid back. When she starts that, I know she's psychoanalyzing everything,
I'm
right?
not
So she, believe me, she's a lot
learning.
smarter than you,
Yeah.
than she shows on the front end. And I appreciate her as a co-host and support. But we want to look more at the structure so that we can make a difference. That's what's important to me. Like you always say, solution. What is the
Solutions.
solution? We need to be solution based. You
Yeah.
know. So we definitely have to have you back. I hope you come back. You know.
Oh, I'd love
next
to.
month.
Love
We
to.
We can
need to talk
really
about
dig
some
into these
implicit
topics.
bias too, and some subconscious bias, because
Right.
all of the stuff we talked about is really conscious.
Right.
I see it. I'm aware. But it's like the iceberg and what's below.
Right. Right.
A whole lot of it's
Right.
below.
That's
But
what I was
we-
talking about with my generation. We see what's on the tip, and we can make it a black or white thing. But deep down, and like within our
Yes.
spirits, we know it's something. It's something else in that. But if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. And we want to make sure that in our city, there's room for growth, and we need to have representation in some of these organizations at the city level, at the state level. We need to have representation, you know?
Yeah.
You can't just always speak for me. You know, you have to give me room to grow, but you have to give me the platform also to be inclusive, if you say it's inclusive.
Right.
Right? So tell them, again, Mr. Hamilton, how to reach you.
Well, I do some policy stuff, as you can tell, but as far as the video and photography, the digitalillc.com, and it's 518-527-2040, and it's some excellent video production. Really good.
Thanks for having you, right? Albany, Troy, Schenectady, Rensselaer, we thank you for inviting us into your home. We look forward to more robust conversations, and we appreciate you. Channel Albany, please subscribe, YouTube, Channel Albany, and also we air our shows on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Thank you, and good night.